Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm here to share with you a little bit about how to use the tag map feature of Bodies and Structures 2.0. So here we are on our main page where you start out, and we'll go ahead and click on Begin with Main Menu. The main menu here has all of the things that we've already looked at, and then here we are at the tag map. So this is going to allow you to explore the concepts that we've identified that link these modules together and that generate juxtapositions that you wouldn't normally find if you were looking at each of these topics individually, say on a library shelf or at perhaps a conference panel. So let's click Continue to go into the tag map. So when you first open up the tag map, you're going to see what we call our top level tags, or in what Bodies and Structures 1.0 we called our crossings. These are rationalities, imaginative geographies, flows and immobilities, boundaries, environments, vehicles, and figures. These are the 7 concepts that we came up with as a group. So all 12 of us, 10 module builders, and then David and I for 2.0, concepts we came up with that bring the modules together in interesting ways. These were the things that really, the spatial ideas that were formative to the work that we did in the modules, and we think are formative to any understanding of the spatial history of modern East Asia. So let me show you, how you can use the tag map to surprise yourself, basically, to challenge what you think you know about the scope or scale of a particular concept, for example. So here's how this works. Let's go ahead and start with flows and immobilities. So if you put your mouse over that bubble, it's going to highlight, and if you click on it, it will expand. Bam! Okay, and then this shows you, all these lines show you all of the different pages, some of which are also subtags that flows and immobilities links to. So we've got capital and goods, people, energy, infrastructures, information and knowledge, and biota. These are the subtags that this links to. For now, let's see what happens if we focus on biota. We all have a pressing interest in biota these days, so we'll click on that and see what comes up. And wow, it's actually kind of amazing how many pages we have tagged with biota. If you've looked through the site, you probably won't be surprised to see pages from Maren Ehler's module on smallpox vaccinations in early modern Japan. And we see a number of pages there, but we also see pages from Mitch Asso's module on the threat of biowarfare in Vietnam. So here's a link to a page that he has about the Chinese patriotic hygiene movement. And then also up here, I'll click to move the screen. We see one called Prize-Winning Landscapes. And this one is a page from Magdalena Kolodziej's module on art education in the Japanese Empire. So here already we have 3 different versions of biota appearing in significant ways in the spatial history of modern East Asia. One as the biota that we typically think of like diseases and vectors, and then infection control to manage that. The other as representations of the threat of biowarfare, which was very, very pressing in the 20th century. And then here, a third one, which you may not have anticipated, but we can go over to that page. Whoops, user error. This is where I can explain to you that if you click the bubble again, it will collapse and go back into the mass of bubbles that are attached to biota. So instead, we're going to click the View button, which is going to open Prize-Winning Landscapes in a new tab. And here we are. So if you were doing this on your own, you would take the time to read through this page. I've already read through it in preparation for this, so I can tell you that the reason why this page is tagged with biota is because some of the kind of agricultural products that the landscape painting represents were probably imported, like introduced by the Japanese colonial government. And if you know a little bit about Japanese colonial history, and particularly the history of, say, exhibitions, you'll know that there was lots of moving around of flora and fauna to show off the value of particular colonized regions, or to underscore the kind of cultural and environmental diversity of the Japanese empire. So this is why we have all these 3 things together. Let's go back to the tag map. So that's one way you can use the tag map to really expand like maybe what you thought of as the role of biota in the history of modern East Asia. Let me show you another way we can use the tag map, another sort of surprising juxtaposition. I will click on these bubbles here to close them out. And then let's go down to vehicles, which is my favorite. Click on that. It's going to expand. And here we have subtags. We've got media as a vehicle, vectors as vehicles, and then the one that you are probably most familiar with, transport devices as vehicles. So let's go ahead and click on transport devices. Now here, this one's really fun. This one actually brings together pages from a handful of modules. So there's many hits here from Peter Tilley's module on the opium trade in southeastern China in the 1830s. But there's also hits from Sakura Christmas's module on Manchukuo Airlines, Man Air Company, and its magazine in Manchuria. And then here we even have one from Wei Ting Guo's module about boat races and sort of waterborne culture in Wenzhou. Right? So here is an interesting mix of transport devices that are shaping everyday social life, for example, but then are also becoming important representational objects as people in these moments think about what constitutes the history, the time and the space of modern East Asia. To me, I find this particularly fascinating because when we think about, if you ask kind of the average person the question, like what or how did transport devices play a role in modern East Asian history, they're probably going to hit on like steamship and railroad and the story of imperialism, nation building, and that kind of thing, right? But here we have a much richer view that includes boat races and kind of boat festivals, but also representations of railroads that have like their own very, very interesting history. In the case of 19th century China, we've got the boats that are parked on the coastal areas of southeastern China, which become the kind of the center point of the opium trade, right? So another place where you can really push on your own understanding of what falls into these categories that we use all the time as historians or as scholars of East Asia, but we tend to use in the ways that we are familiar with, right? So what the tag map has done is it's kind of captured the many, many hours of conversation that we as a collective had about what these concepts mean, like what concepts are important in the spatial history of modern East Asia, and then what they mean to each of us, right? And how can we put them together in a way that is both intellectually interesting, but also intellectually rigorous. So I'll show you one last thing you can do with the tag map, and that is you can click on the inspector. If you do that, then you will see the title and any metadata that is associated with a particular page. So you might, if it's got a description, you'll get the description there. And then you can always, of course, click on View, and that will take you in a new tab to that page. So have fun exploring, and I hope that this was helpful.